So go live. Okay. So just open this and wait for us to go live. Just make sure. It says we're live. Aha. All right. Welcome everyone to a game of Mecha Hack known as Eleconium Extraction. I prepared this from the Mecha Hack Mission Manual. Excellent product. I'd recommend you go and purchase it, or at least have a look at it if you're at all interested in fast-paced mech combat in a tabletop RPG setting. We've got three excellent players here. We've got my friend Dylan Pether, my friend DJ, and a new acquaintance, soon-to-be friend, John. Always good to meet new people. Today, we'll be venturing in to the Nydus Nebula, a sector of deep space in no man's land, occupied not by the Aeonic Primacy, nor the Terran Collective, nor the Neo-Dominion. If everyone's ready, let's go. It's been about a half week since each of you was contacted secretly, quietly, through whatever channels you may have. Backdoor radio frequencies, places that no one else would think to look but you. A strange message was sent to each of you. Details were vague, information was encrypted, but each of you learnt that whoever was contacting you worked for the Terran Collective and was looking to pay you 50,000 credits, an absolutely enormous sum, to venture into perhaps certain death and retrieve something very valuable. In that half week, you found your way to the drop point, got picked up by the Terran Collective, and have been shuttling towards an unknown sector of space for a few days. The ship you're in is old school, as a way to describe it. It is grey and black and faded green sheet steel. It looks like a chisel in the right place might be able to puncture the air seal and send all of you spiraling through space without an air source. It is a junker, not exactly a high-class military budget ship. You're all lounging, or as much as you can lounge, in what you could assume may have once been a small cargo bay for delicate shipping, but has been haphazardly converted into a place to sit, not really anything else. Cheap wooden furniture and huge plates of steel to rest things on strew the room. And you've been sitting here. Occasionally a military official will pass by wearing the uniform of the Terran Collective. But if you've asked them anything or tried to talk to them, they simply tell you that they're not authorized to speak with the help, with the talent. A few hours pass, and you can hear the constant thronging of old age engines. And a door opens with a heavy steel lurch. And a woman steps through. She catches your eye. She has various cybernetic augmentations, notably a bionic eye that seems to be constantly twitching and scanning information from around the room. And she steps towards the center of all of you, looks to each of you in turn. You received our message, then.
You did make it easy for me.
We look for only the best. We can't have
That's what you got.
a confident one. As you may have realized, I am Captain Undra of the Terran Collective. I have called you all here for a very dangerous mission. That is why I hope that we have selected the best. For the past few days, we have been shuttling towards a drop point near the Nydus Nebula. If you have not heard of it, it is a terribly dangerous place. A sector of space constantly bombarded by energetic phenomena. We have sent small ships in. They are torn to shreds. We have sent large ships in. They never return. We want you to take your mech suits, venture into the Nydus Nebula, and recover something valuable for us. And in return, if you survive, you'll be rewarded 50,000 credits. You will speak to no one besides each other for the duration of this mission, and not even each other once this mission is done. Are we in agreement?
That kind of money? Of course.
And sort of hearing this and looking to Owen and Kix, and do you guys seem to nod or agree?
Sounds good to me.
And so, seeing the room seems to be open to this, she rolls the sleeve up on her right arm, and you can see that in the back of her forearm, there's sort of a flexible screen or projector of sorts, and she taps a few buttons, and from her arm projects this 3D map of what you presume to be the Nydus Nebula. A huge sector of space, shrouded in all kinds of unstable compounds and energetic happenings. Lightning arcs, or holographic projections of lightning arc from cloud to cloud. This vibrant pink mass sits atop her arm. She zooms in and she says, "This place is, quite frankly, a graveyard. We are sending you in for a very good reason." And she swipes her hand, and the display sort of shifts like a PowerPoint slide. And it shifts to something you may or may not recognize. It shifts to a wobbling puddle of metal. And its strange sort of off-white, off-grey color, if any of you would know about this metal, immediately gives it away as Eleconium. A rare, fluid metal that can only be controlled by precise application of electrical current. Now, if any of you do know about this, you'd know this stuff is exceedingly, just stupidly rare. Maybe a few vials, maybe a couple kilograms at most in the entire possession of the Terran Collective. As this display shows on screen, she lets it hang in the air for a moment. Then she looks to each of you and she says, "We are sending you in and offering you such high pay because we believe the Nydus Nebula may be a vast, vast store of Eleconium. I'm sure you know that if we could get our hands on this, we may be able to start rivaling the Aeonic primacy in technology. You will be tasked with taking these," and she swipes again, and what looks like a large industrial container hooked up to an oversized car battery displays on the screen. And she says, You'll be taking these containers, hooked with high current batteries, and you'll be retrieving any Eleconium you can find and returning it to us. You'll have 8 hours to return to the ship and the drop point before we leave you. We cannot afford to stay in deep space for too long. That is all. And with that, she turns, looks to each of you one last time, and leaves the room. And the only noise that fills the silence is again that constant thronging of old age engines. So, when you arrived on this ship, you brought your mechs with you, as per the request. And you know they're currently down sort of in a large cargo bay directly next to the ship's airlock. So, if we want to take a moment to introduce our characters, maybe introduce their mechs, go right ahead.
I'll go first. So my character's name's Connor Locke. He's just a fresh-faced young man out of the academy. He's not really knowing what he's doing, but he's trying to play it off. And his mech, the Oracle Zero, he's very proud of it. He's designed it himself in some places, but it's still very basic.
Nice.
My character is Kix Pickens, and he's sort of an older, grizzled, sort of Rambo-looking guy, and he sees this fresh, new, recruit, and can see that he doesn't have a terrible amount of experience, and but Kix has been in the game for a while. His mech is Crimson Apex, and it's this weird, almost Aeonic looking, alien looking mech that's got 3 arms, and he uses that to sort of stabilize this large chain gun, and he's just looking forward to getting this job, get in there and do what he's got to do, and get it over with.
Owen's looking over the mechs, wondering, are they really going to hold together? And that one looks like, did it come up with the training? Anyway, he kind of shakes his head as this is going through his head. My name's John, and I'm playing Owen Voodoo Vidar. Voodoo is kind of the nickname that he was given because on a flight deck, no one has ever seen anything quite like the way he can hack parts. Most mechs, you gotta use at least the same company, if not the same model for parts. His mech is like nothing any of you guys have ever seen. It is very monster looking. It's got one arm is nothing but a cannon. The other arm is a claw that just is something to see. It's probably about 25% of the size of the mech. I mean, it looks something like out of a horror movie. And he refers to it as Hungry Zombie, or zombie most of the time. And the other odd thing you see is there is a pile of armor chunks. And when I mean chunks, they're just random. And you notice some scarring on them, things like that. And you can tell that this guy the mech is actually using this to repair.
And so as we all venture down into the cargo bay and we see these mechs sort of haphazardly stored down here, maybe they've got some, I don't know, steel chain or like a thick industrial rope sort of strapping them to the walls of the cargo bay so they don't get flung around during flight. You can see sort of three pairs of what look to be engineers or technicians walking towards each of your mechs and walking towards Hungry Zombie. Perhaps they're like looking at this thing and they're sort of looking it over, and you can see the confusion start to set in on their faces. They're like, okay, but that, hey. And you can see one of them start to like pull out a data pad and type some things in to sort of try to figure out at least what he's dealing with. And when he can't, he looks to his partner and she looks to him, and both of them just have no clue. And so reluctantly they walk up to you, Owen, and they say, we've been sent by Miss Undra, Captain Undra. We've been sent to provide some augmentation to your mechs. And as he says this, the other two pairs of engineers and technicians are just setting to work with blowtorches and high voltage welders. And they continue. We've been sent to provide you additional thrusters and some experimental Eleconium devices. How... What is that? What is that? He loses his professional attitude. He just starts pointing towards your mech. He says, how? And more importantly, what? And more importantly, how again? Seriously. Oh, sorry, you're muted, John. Oop, still muted. There we are.
Okay. I'm sorry, the screen minied. I've only been on Zoom a few times.
That's okay.
Owen looks at them, and the first thing they see is, if anything, they're kind of taken aback because he is a good old-fashioned Bayou boy. And you hear, don't worry about it, gents and madam. And he comes out, and you notice that he does have the standard engineering flight suit, but his is unattached and tied off. It looks like a pair of overalls that someone has coveralls that someone has tied off because he wants access to what looks like a tattoo. And he says, reactor bars. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. I've been working on him since probably before you guys have been in tech school. It is the most salvaged piece of technology probably in this room. And with that, I just say, you've got extra jets. That's great. And with that, he goes up. And at this point, you realize that the pile of armor pieces is actually starting to float a little. And with that, it just clamps onto the back of the mech. And it looks like someone has taken a small microfighter and now attached it to this mech.
Nice.
I'm not sure what maneuvering jets you want to add, but I think I've got about anything you can do covered with that part. Although I would love to take the fuel reserves.
And so they're still sort of throughout this, they've just sort of been dumbstruck. They're just like the confidence with which you proclaim like this is the most salvaged piece of tech in the sector. Like yeah, look at the thing. Like, of course it is. Um, and so until you say, I'd be happy to take the fuel reserves, they've just generally not known what to say. But with that,
The entire time he's saying this, it is in that slightly French Creole voice set that either makes people think that he cannot possibly know what he's talking about, or you're wondering that accent has to be very cultivated.
um, so when you say you'd love to take the fuel reserves, they just sort of look at each other and say, like they look at each other and they exchange that look of, you know what, this is our out. I don't want to work on that thing. This is our out. They say, oh,
Do either one of them look curious though at it?
they look mostly not like horrified as in afraid, but horrified as in like a first year uni student reading third year content. They're like, I didn't know it could get like this.
I know, and that's the reason why he's just smiling at them as they're trying to figure it out.
Mm.
It's obvious he knows exactly how this machine works.
Yeah.
And it's obvious that it breaks so many rules that people are taught.
So, with that, they take like one final glance at it, and they simply say,
And with that, I open up the main chamber, and you can see me tap a few switches. I'm not even getting in it. And with that, the it has almost like dreads off its back that looks decorative. And at that point, they start moving. And the fuel reserve components are just getting integrated into the flight module. And it's doing it on its own.
and so they look to each other and they say, well, what do you think of it? And she says, well, Captain Undra did say she was looking for the best, but this... And they turn to you and they say, you seem to have everything under control. We'll be assisting our crewmates. And so they turn...
And I offer, if you need any other assistance, just let me know.
Of course.
And I just casually throw it out. It feels almost like a college professor saying, if you need the extra credit, I'll be here to answer the question for you.
And so they turn and they start walking away from this sort of marvel. And they walk towards one of the other two teams. I think the team working on your mech, DJ, or approaching to work on your mech. How would you have taken like two people that appear to, you know, be looking to work on what is presumably, you know, a long used piece of equipment of yours? How would you have taken this?
Well, Kix normally doesn't do his own work anyway on his mech. He has a team. You know, he knows a guy that he gets work done, and so he doesn't mind necessarily. He overhears the talking about upgrades and experimental things, and this mech is mostly experimental to begin with, so he's not afraid of a few new tools.
And so as you're seemingly like not upset about them coming to work on your mech, they just set to work. And Dylan, they do the same for yours unless you object.
Connor would not object. He's just like, ooh, free part, free. Could you put a paint job while you're there, just trying to like scam as much work out of these guys as possible?
You know what? Let's. The two that are working on your mech, they're a bit hurly burly. They're a bit like set about their work. They're here to do one job and then go get their next assignment. And so they listen to your first, well, not really listen. They let you say your first few requests without paying you any real mind. And then maybe the third or fourth request is starting to get a bit incessant for them, and so they fire up. They put a bit too much, plasma or a bit too much gas into the blowtorch they're using, and so right as you start the fourth request, there's just a of flame to try to shock the new kid. So can I ask, what experimental Eleconium module did everyone take?
I took swiftness.
I took the tendrils.
Did you take one of the experimental Eleconium modules, John?
I didn't even know about them.
Oh,
be
sorry.
honest.
Oh, I think because you took 3 regular modules. Yeah, that's fine.
Actually, I changed the mainframe, so I don't know. I didn't catch what those modules even were.
Oh, sorry.
I haven't read fully into the mecha, the new mecha hack.
That's cool. That's cool. We'll just continue from there. So we'll flavor that. And so sort of afraid to work on your strange mech. They've simply provided you with like a small experimental device made of Eleconium, and looking at it, it sets in that this small device that has just the tiniest amounts of this metal alloyed with others is maybe half as valuable, maybe as valuable as your mech. It's ridiculous looking at it. And
Probably a lot more than my mech because most people underrate it because of what it's made of.
yeah, and so it's like looking at it, this thing is tremendously valuable. And perhaps it gets integrated into your mech with those same tendrils that integrated the fuel units.
Mhm.
And so, sorry, Oracle Zero, Dylan, your mech, this sort of liquid alloy metal starts to flow around as this module is installed, this huge battery pack strapped to the back of your mech. This liquid metal starts to sort of flow and coil like a snake around a snake handler's arms. And it flows deceptively. You could think of it the same way a river flows and can flow quite strongly, quite violently, but looks almost serene at the surface. This shimmering metal just flowing. But you know that if you got in the way of it, it would knock you clean off your feet, potentially kill you. And Crimson Apex, your mech DJ, you can see this liquid metal seeps in to your mech as if your mech were a sponge unceremoniously dropped into a wet sink. It absorbs this metal into sort of the thrusters and the springs and the coiled energy of your mech, particularly in the legs. And so with these thrusters installed and everyone's Eleconium installed, a voice calls over the loudspeakers. It's Captain Undra's voice, and she says, "We will be at the drop point in 20 minutes. All non-talent personnel, please leave the cargo bay. All talent personnel, be inside your mechs or you will perish. That is all." And the loudspeaker goes out with that characteristic. And you know, in 20 minutes, you'll be dropped into deep space.
Connor just starts, just straight up, yep, better get in the mech then, and just starts clambering up into this mech, like, yep, not risking it, getting in.
All right. And
Hicks would Hicks would go up and put his hand on. There's a space where he could put his hand in to open the chest of the chassis up, and it sort of lets him in, and he climbs up in and straps himself down into the seat, and it seals up around him, and you can hear the as it pressurizes the suit and gets it ready for the drop.
oh, sorry, you're muted again, John.
Owen goes up to his mech, sort of just stands in front of it, facing the same way as the mech. And the tendrils just kind of go around him and pull him back into the mech. Although you aren't quite sure if there's a true patch or if it just kind of enfolds him.
And so, as maybe 15 minutes have passed, you start to perhaps even see as much as you hear the pressurization or the drop in pressure of the chamber. Little iron filings, little bits of slag from the welding that were happening before start to skitter along the floor as the pressure drops. And as you sit in your seat, you feel that artificial gravity that has been keeping you down to the floor slowly fade away. And it's this strange feeling of becoming lighter and lighter over the course of maybe 3 or 4 minutes. You become lighter and lighter until the only thing keeping you to your seat or bound in your cockpit is whatever seatbelt or socket or suit you have that keeps you in place. The tendrils, in the case of Owen. Finally, the 20 minutes pass, and the huge plate steel door that acts as the airlock, you see the center of it spin like a vault's door, and then it thonks out of place, slides to the side, and slowly opens into the black void of space. And as you all leave the cargo hold, you look around and you can see you're in a strangely empty sector of space. There's a star nearby, but quite a far ways away. You can see plenty of stars twinkling off in the distance. There's a stray asteroid here or there. You can see a moon, maybe a few days' travel by mech away. And you can see sort of downward and in front of you from where you are, this crackling, odd pink and blue. The light hits your eyes and feels unnatural. It feels as if, rather than, say, being made of a continuous spectrum of light, you're getting maybe 2 or 3 wavelengths, and they're just sort of conglomerating in your eyes, rather than getting all kinds of different blue. When you get blue, it is specifically this blue, and when you get pink, it is specifically this pink, and the only thing in between is getting both at the same time. It strikes your eyes vibrantly in this black void. You can see in front of you the Nydus Nebula, the destination of your mission.
Connor, being like the typical cocky recruit, is just like, see if you guys can keep up, old man, and just jumps. It's just, yep, I'm off.
Hicks would look around and make sure that everything was secure, and call out and make sure, use the comms or whatever, and try to call in and see where are, these pods that we're supposed to carry with us, make sure we have those with us before he heads towards the door and takes his leap.
So yeah, those containers have been sort of pre-installed, mounted on the back of your mech.
when zombie comes out, it moves more fluidly than any mech you've ever seen. It is looking smooth, no clunk, no jerk, and it's carrying the modules no problem. The back jets that he has is kind of doing a very smooth, almost bird-like soar of wings coming out of it, because he's not using the type of jets that you guys have on. It is actually a full jump jet module.
So, as you're all sort of blasting, I suppose, towards this nebula, your sensors are stable. They're normal. They're picking up, a standard level of radiation. They're, reporting, yes, nearest dangerous mass, and it's a nearby asteroid, and that changes as you fly past lots of different ones. But as you get within maybe 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 1 minute of this nebula, your sensors start to pick up, and they start to go wild. Any sensors you have for electrical energy just spike rapidly at different times, and if you're paying very close attention, you can almost make out the arcs of lightning in the nebula that may be causing these. And so a bolt of lightning goes, and your sensor just spikes and drops back down. Radiation has picked up immensely, maybe 10, 15, 20 times as much as it was before. And as you're flying towards this place, just nearing the edge, you realize, even visually, how thick the clouds are. It is almost like being submerged in cotton candy. It's impossible to see past this fluffy, vibrant, stinging cloud. And if you're all going to charge into the Nydus Nebula, try to penetrate its outer wall, then I'm going to need you all to, on each of your turns, make a systems check at disadvantage to chart a course through the nebula.
Do you want that now?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
At disadvantage, I failed that one.
Dear. Other guys?
It is the lower, so we're going for the higher dice because it's disadvantage mecha hack. Sorry.
All good.
So no, I pass.
Cool. And John? Oh, sorry, you're muted again.
To this sometime tonight. Yeah, I'm good.
Cool. And so
It was close, but
as you first enter, it is a shock to the system, and perhaps we'll say Owen, being used to sort of strange mech components, maybe he has different sensors to you guys that allow him to sort of navigate through these thick clouds and predict where energy strikes are going to appear next. Perhaps Connor Locke, perhaps being fresh out of the academy, he's not so set in his ways, he's more adaptable. But Kix, being the old veteran that you are, this takes you completely by surprise, and as you're trying to chart a course through the least energetic parts of this place, you stumble through and briefly form the path of least resistance for a huge bundle of negative energy, and a bolt of lightning just straight through the center of your mech. Need you to take 1 damage and roll your reactor die.
Okay. I rolled a 2, but since I'm a vet, it only downgrades on a 1, so I'm good.
Nice. And so some of that old grit, things are looking bad, but you've been in this mech for ages, you know exactly how to work it. And so you just avoid having the, reactor get a little out of control. So as you're flying through these eerily quiet clouds, managing to avoid lightning strikes and warbling balls of plasma, through whatever air filtration system you have, you start to smell that faint smell of ozone. Perhaps not so faint for Kix, who was just struck by lightning. that that chemical smell may be comparable to chlorine, but it smells at once clean and like it is deadly. So as you proceed, charting your course, your sensors have all been going completely haywire, except the nearest significant mass. That has been fairly flatlined. It's not been detecting anything nearby, except it starts to spike up. And if you sort of open up your scanner, you'll see that asteroids are caught in this nebula, being flung around by the induced magnetic fields of this place, their heavy metal content allowing them to act as magnets, to be wrapped in circles. And so, if I could get another disadvantage systems test and a mobility test to avoid an asteroid flying towards you, or a power test to burst through.
Wow, that is a 1 and a 4 for me, so probably not much problems.
I failed the systems again, but I succeeded on a power test.
All right.
I passed both system and mobility. Just.
And so, John, you passed both as well?
Oh, yeah.
Cool. And so it's again, having perhaps not been struck, they've sort of kept their mettle a bit more. Connor and Owen, they managed to weave through. Perhaps Connor just dodging, like weaving along the underside, sort of skimming, almost showing off maybe.
100% showing off. Oh, sorry.
While we're going into this, I'm also going to ask the sentient part of zombie what he is sensing, being that the mech is hybrid.
And so, what kind of relation do you have with this sentient part of the mech? What sort of presence does it give off to you?
It is almost beastly at times, but it's come to find out that it realizes that if I didn't incorporate what's left of him into the mech, he wouldn't be here. So it's kind of like a beaten dog that loves you to pieces, but can just as easily tear out your throat.
And so I think
it's always the dominance game.
And so I think the voice maybe comes as a guttural thing to you, and it might say something along the lines of, "We have fought many foes, where the question was who would tear each other apart. The energies here, there is no question. If we stay here too long, we will die." And so he's essentially telling you the energies here are tremendous. And so, weaving around these boulders, you see one flying right towards Kix and Crimson Apex. And so, how is it that you've dealt with this boulder, Kix?
I think that I would like when I jumped, my chain gun was sort of down at the side, and so I sort of just snap it up and just fire off a couple of bursts, and it sort of breaks through and makes a hole big enough for me to sort of fit through the middle of. But I also feel like that maybe is the reason that I failed the system test. Like I was occupied trying to get through this, and it being all, I'm of course metal and this metal asteroid, and maybe this bolt just comes right in behind me as I'm trying to get through.
And so you fire off these bullets that are bigger than a man, and each one rapid fire just chunks out of the rock, just, and this sort of cavern emerges, this tunnel, and you can see all around you, not like the ores you would find on Earth that are sort of rusted and orange and sort of oxidated. This is just pure iron that has not been exposed, pure iron and other metals, and so it's still highly conductive. And as you're flying through the center, it's like you're inside a lightning rod, and another bolt of lightning arcs through, and that's going to be 6 points of damage and another reactor roll.
Can I spend some armor on this, or
Yeah, go ahead.
or is it okay? And a reactor roll. I'm good. Good on the reactor.
Right. And so this bolt of lightning strikes through, and that smell of ozone again, as these high energies have created unstable compounds that let off this strange smell before they dissipate. Both Owen and Connor, you see Kick sort of disappear into the center of this boulder, and then you see it get struck with lightning, and the entire thing sort of lights up briefly. And you think the worst before he flies on out. And so proceeding, your senses are starting to die down. You seem to be proceeding into a lower energy portion of the nebula. And so if everyone could give me a systems test, final systems test, not at disadvantage, as you proceed into the lower energy portion of the nebula.
Passed.
I
Just.
got a success on that one.
Nice.
That one I made.
Nice. And so Owen and Connor, thoroughly sort of used to these bolts of lightning, sort of deftly fly in sort of irregular paths to avoid these high energy sectors. And Kix, maybe a little bit sick of getting struck with lightning, manages to pull through and avoid one more. And your energy sensors, they're still maybe much higher. They're picking up much higher signals than you would normally expect, but they're not the ridiculous mountainous spikes that you were getting when you first entered the nebula. And after maybe 2-3 minutes of smooth travel, not smooth, but cautious travel, the clouds start to dissipate. And eventually you can see through the fog. You can see what looks like. You can clearly see. It's like a cocoon almost. This wreathed nebula, the shape that you saw projected from Captain Undra's forearm. You can see the inside of it now. It's hollow. And you can see the wisps of cloud sparking off, and perhaps you can see lightning bolts sort of arcing inward, but the center seems relatively stable. And floating through the center, you can see shrapnel. Big hunks of metal that are clearly parts of the destroyed small ships from the Terran Collective. Floating past, you may even see what you imagine might be the helmet of a pilot. Looking forward, you see a huge asteroid. You're not sure if it'd classify as a small moon or not. It's been nestled inside this nebula. And you're here. Your job is to find any Eleconium you can and return it. How you go about that is up to you. With the shrapnel floating through space, this huge asteroid in the center, and many of these small pockets of stone floating around.
I'd flip on the comms and I'd suggest, let's go try to land on that big rock and see what we can find. See if we can see any traces of Eleconium.
You notice that Zombie is over by a fragment of a mech, and he says, "I think you need to come over here first before we do that. We'll get it taken care of in a minute, but I noticed you've taken a little bit of a ding before we go in. Might as well deal with that before we deal with something else potentially." With that, with the engineering ability that I've got, I'm going to go ahead and repair your damage. But the way I'm doing it is I'm literally siphoning off part of the armor of the mech to repair your inner structure and the 1.2 cost of armor.
Okay, so does that just heal my armor points, or
It heals your How many HP are you down?
I'm 5 HP down and 2 armor points down.
When it first starts, you see that it's actually coming off of Zombie, and then it's starting to salvage off of the pieces of the mech, and it's almost an eerie feeling. Gives you the feeling of something actually almost like it's eating or feeding.
So that's the
So
engineer ability, right?
Yeah. But what I'm doing is I'm taking it off of my HP, and then I'm using the ability of the mech itself to repair itself.
Oh, nice.
Okay, so this is the quick fix. Is that what it is?
Yeah, so how much HP you pumping back into Crimson Apex?
I'll max him back out.
Cool.
Okay.
Alright. And
This is actually more of the mech ability and my engineer character ability than anything
Okay.
else.
cool.
It's not a traditional quick fix.
Okay.
And my mech can actually do this in combat.
Nice.
Along with, if you had lost your reactor had downgraded, I can use my reactor to either enhance or tear down someone else's reactor.
Okay.
Cool.
So he's a little crazy on the manipulation stuff.
Yeah.
He may not have raw firepower, but wow.
Right. And so as this energy sort of flows in and these various repairs are made, Kix, you mentioned you were interested sort of looking towards the large asteroid in the center, the almost moon. And so looking towards it, if you would like, before you get to the surface, you can make a systems test to scan for any unusual things on the surface. Eleconium's pretty characteristic, you'd be able to identify it.
I rolled a 1 on that, so
Hey, so what I'm gonna say for a crit success, you can sense that there are three pools of Eleconium, sort of not near each other, but like close enough to each other that you could all like chat over comms, and sort of dig them up with whatever tools you have, and then store them in these containers. Based on the readings you're getting, this is enough Eleconium for each of you to fill two of your containers and stabilize.
I'd relay that, and I'd tap some buttons on my console and sort of send my systems readings out to everybody and show them, like pin the locations on the sort of heads up display and say, here's some good locations for us to go check out.
Right. And so, if you guys are heading down to, are you guys going to head down to the surface?
Connor would very much be like, okay, Pops, I'm just gonna follow your lead. Like, you know what you're doing.
All right. It's an eerie quiet again after the sort of, maybe there wasn't noise at all when you were going through the nebula, but there was enough sensory input. There was, your scanners, maybe they were blaring at you, maybe they're silent, but you've got some, input from your scanners. You've got this wall of pink cloud in front of you. You've got these asteroids you need to dodge. You've got your comrade being struck by lightning. There was huge sensory input, and now, just minutes later, flying towards this semi-moon, it's an eerie quiet in the void. As you touch down on the surface, you notice a small gravitational pull. Like, you could walk on this if you got out and walked around, but it would be like you could jump significantly high, maybe 4 or 5 times as high as you could on a standard gravity planet. And so, do you guys start digging? And if so, how do you dig out these pockets?
When we discover one of the pockets, I'm kind of asking, are we going to split up for this, or are we going to stick together?
I would say we kind of stick together and move from location to
Uh,
location.
I completely agree with you. I just was getting a lay of the land. When zombie lands, the hover pack that he has for the jet boosters will detach and start doing a surveillance around us. And I'm going to put it in surveillance mode. It's basically going to alert us if anything's trying to come towards us.
Cool. Anything coming towards you? So I imagine you get a few not like false positives, because something is coming towards you, but as you check the specifics, it's like a slow moving piece of, orbital shrapnel, or maybe like a small chunk of rock that's flown off, just sort of floating by. Nothing is intently coming at you. There's no ships, nor mechs, nor kaiju out here that have, started hurtling towards you.
Yeah, I'm just mainly doing it as a preventative so that we can focus on the potentially dangerous act of getting this mineral out of there.
Mm.
Because it sounds like it's a very rare but very unsafe mineral to dig.
Mm. And so, as you do unearth these pockets, whether you blast them open, whether you sort of reach down with your mech's hands and peel the stone back, whatever it is you do, once you open one of the chambers, it's sort of strange. You know it's a liquid, and you know you're in zero gravity, but its surface tension appears to be quite high. It sticks to itself like nothing else, and maybe with one impact of a bullet or a fist, it sort of splashes. And that splash is more like a ripping. It reminds you of a cell dividing, where there was once one large pocket, there's one large pocket and two sort of small baubles floating out. But you found the stuff, and your diggings go relatively smoothly, visiting these 3 different pockets. If there's anything specific anyone would want to do let me know. But these containers fill up quickly, and you realize that if it weren't for the sheer investment of getting you out here and knowing where this place was, if you had known of this place and had come here sooner, you'd be absolutely rich. Just ungodly rich. You could sell this to anyone. Absolutely anyone. And as these containers fill up, it's sort of like catching butterflies almost. You have to sort of sweep to catch these baubles in these containers, and as they hit the metal walls, the current flows into them, and it almost looks like it's freezing in place. Just where once was a dense liquid, there's now just crystallized Eleconium on the walls of these containers. And as you get to the final sort of chamber, the final pocket underground, Owen, your sensor goes off and then goes quiet. And looking through the data, it's sort of a false positive caused by getting close enough to what appears to be a massive crater that you didn't see first time you came near the moon, the semi-moon.
We
So,
didn't notice, or it wasn't there.
well, that's another question. You haven't heard any huge impacts or something that could have caused this crater while you've been here, so presumably it
Okay.
was just like obscured.
I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't being disguised or another fluid object had appeared, pulled out of it or something.
Mm.
Overly cautious.
Yeah, it's a good way to be. And so, what will you do now? You've got 6 containers of Eleconium safely secured, and this huge chasm off to the side.
Did our instructions tell us how much of this that they expected, or
It was strange. So you get the vibe that there's sort of a clash in management, sort of a mismatch of expectations. All the wording seems to be, we don't think there's going to be much Eleconium here. Get whatever you can and come back. But all the equipment seems to suggest that someone expects there's going to be a huge amount here. The containers you've had, each of which could sell for many, many times one of your mechs. You've got 6 of those each. And, you know, these large veins, you've mined out 3 large pockets, and you've only filled 2 each. So it's sort of an unknown what they were expecting.
as we're kind of looking around near this crater, I'd like to. Can I do a scan, like a systems scan, to see if there's anything crazy
Yeah,
going
sure.
on?
Go ahead and make me a systems test.
It's a success.
Nice. So what is it in particular you're looking for? Is there anything in particular, or just a general scan?
Partially scanning for more Eleconium, and then also just is this worth our time to try to explore?
And so as you send whatever signals you do off into the chasm, they sort of bounce back. And I imagine you've got several displays sort of near your cockpit that sort of interpret all the data and provide sort of visualizations that you can digest easily. And a few things catch your eye. You can tell that there's definitely more Eleconium here, but it seems to be, instead of in small pockets, it seems to be sort of in a reservoir at the bottom of the chasm. And not just at the surface of the bottom, it's quite a ways down into this sort of semi-moon. And as your scanners sort of give you a readout, you know, maybe you've got seismic sensors that can tell you about different areas of density in the stone. What looks to be buried chunks of one of the giant Terran Collective ships that was sent in has been buried in the stone here. You're not sure exactly what it is, but your sensors are fine enough that you can see the details. Sort of a blurry image, a blurry outline deep beneath the stone. It'd be a safe bet.
Well, I would, you know, through the comms, I would say, you know, there's a lot of this stuff down at the bottom of that. We want to go for it.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds good to me, Pops.
And so,
Well,
oh, sorry.
Kicks would, you know, hit the throttle and start the descent down into this chasm towards the lake of Eleconium.
And so, it's a quick descent. With the thrusters you have and with the low gravity, you don't really have to worry about, you know, impacting too hard. And so you can just all go down relatively smoothly, whether you sort of clunk down the side or if you just jump into the center and allow sort of retro thrusters to cushion your fall. And could everyone give me a systems... Actually, no, you know what? DJ's just succeeded on a systems test, and John has his sort of remote scanner going. So I'll say, automatically, as you get down to the bottom, you notice in the stone, sort of, not... They seem to be aware of you. They start moving towards the surface of the stone as you're lower down in this chasm. John, your sensor can see sort of disruptions in the stone, and DJ, your seismic sensors, they can feel vibrations. What appear to be 3 small kaiju are advancing towards your position. And
As it
so,
kind of flashes up on my screen, I relay the message and I say, you know, look alive. We don't know, you know, we don't know if we're going to need to be offensive or not. Just, you know, keep your guard up.
And so what I'll do here is I'll say everyone roll initiative, but you'll get essentially a surprise round, a free round to act and prepare as you will, because you have realized these guys are here.
I'm on the underside of the initiative.
Same for me.
Cool.
I'm ahead of the initiative.
Cool. Okay. So you're all going through... What preparations do you make? What does it look like for you and your mechs to sort of be on edge?
So kind of just unsheaths his axe and just lights it up and whips out his machine gun. He's just like, time to rock and roll, boys. that I can get all of them before you guys even get hit.
We'll see. But you can tell that whatever comes, there is more noise. There's like a background noise that you can't really identify going off in the cockpit of of Zombie that you've never heard in a mech. And I recognize it just because I've been piloting him for so long. The kaiju core that's in this mech is wanting to basically intimidate them and dominate socially.
Cool.
So,
Yeah.
Well,
Oh,
Ooh.
we've lost Dylan. Oh dear. Go ahead, DJ. Dylan should be back in soon, I imagine, and if he's not, we'll go from there.
Kix would reach up and turn some knobs and stuff on his console, and he would divert power from his reactor so that his, he can make sure his weapon is primed well. So I'm gonna use my divert power ability, and I'm going to lower my reactor die so I can raise my damage die.
Nice.
So.
I might just text Dylan real quick and see what's what. Technical difficulties. It's an online game of D&D. Hand in hand. Ooh. So, how's it been so far? How are we liking the game?
oh, it's definitely fun.
Awesome.
Definitely interesting.
Cool. And
also, I am definitely keeping a chart of this place because this seems like a fun place to come back to.
Oh.
Well, he's an engineer and techie, and you've
It
got
makes
a
sense.
mech graveyard and a super valuable mineral.
Yeah, and quite a store of it as well.
To me, this has to be, rather than the scary place that everyone else sees it, Voodoo is probably thinking, can I sneak back into this mother lode?
Man, I have to like hire a charter ship out here, and pay everyone on board to keep quiet. Pay him in Eleconium.
I guess the question would be is, do we know how we got out here? Like, would we know how to get back?
That's a good point. You've just sort of been on board a ship with few windows, so it might be quite a job to get back. Yeah. So what I think we'll do is, so Dylan's trying to rejoin now. We'll give it another 2 minutes, and if he's back by then, hooray. If not, we'll just continue, and we'll catch him up when he does get back.
Sounds good to me.
I'm gonna go check the stream chat, see if anyone's been hanging out. One of the friends from my home group has been. That's cool. That's cool. Yeah. Oh, here we go. Hey.
We're all in the wrong spot.
That's okay. I expected that. Let's put you over here. And nope, back up here. And back down there. There we go. Hey, Dylan, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Cool. So what did you hear before you dropped?
Just preparing. That's all.
Cool. And so you've got your machine gun at the ready, you've lit up your axe. Kix has kicked Kix has kicked his reactor down to kick his damage die up, and Owen has what was sorry I've forgotten what was it you wanted to do, Owen?
I'm just trying to keep my mech from going completely feral.
Yes, that's right. So we'll go in initiative order. We'll start with Owen and Hungry Zombie. So what I'll do for this surprise round is, because you've scanned this quite successfully, and you've got this overhead scanner, you guys can make attacks at these kaiju, like as they're underground, but they'll be at disadvantage because they're completely underground. And you can do anything else that you'd like to as well. So, Owen, what's up?
Well, how big of kaiju are they?
You'd estimate they're more slender and muscular, but they'd rival your mechs in height.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and attempt an intimidation.
Right. So if you can go ahead and make a presence test for me.
And probably this will freak out the guys because hybrid mechs are a myth at most.
Nice. So yeah, if you just want to make a presence test, and based on how well it goes, I'll think of something.
That puts me at 5 under.
5 under, right. So what I'll say is that they are aware that there is something quite dangerous at the surface, and so they'll still charge forward because they're quite used to being sort of, dangerous creatures themselves. But the attacks they make for the first round will be at disadvantage.
And for my second action, I want to ready an action to gnaw being the first one that pops up.
Cool. Easy done. Right. And so sort of Connor and Kix, you see just this horrific mech stomping around and making as much noise as it can. You see Owen sort of commanding it to look threatening. And at a distance, you might even think it was a showdown between kaiju. That's how monstrous this mech looks.
And you even hear a roar.
And so you guys can decide who goes before who and what you do.
You can go first, DJ.
Okay. So how far away? What range band? What are they? Up near? Are they at far?
They'd all be near, but underground.
Okay. So I would sort of heft this big chain gun with all 3 of my arms, and I'm gonna, as a use action, I'm gonna flip a switch on the side and activate its Buster ability. So I'm gonna roll my reactor die. It's good. Oop, actually, that was the wrong reactor die. Still good. And then I have advantage. It says I have advantage on the next check, but since I already had disadvantage, I'll just roll it as a normal attack.
Cool.
And then I'll get to add 4 to the damage if I hit. Plus, with this heavy weapon wielded with 3 arms, I get the +2 damage, but I don't take the +2 penalty.
Damn.
To the roll.
All right.
So I'm gonna take a shot with this Buster chain gun, and that's a success. So my damage die is a D10. Wow, that was a 9. So that's 15 damage.
Wow. And so it harkens back to earlier when you made that shot. that series of shots that were clinking the rocks out of that asteroid. But rather than flying through and getting electrocuted, rather than you flying through, just these colossal rounds shoot through and pin the arm of this kaiju as it sort of writhes out of the ground. You can see it is just howling, and it looks seriously hurt as this bullet has sort of lodged its way into its shoulder. It looks sort of like a typical Godzilla-esque kaiju, but with these huge glowing blue veins running all through its body. And if your bullet had been maybe one caliber size up, it would have taken its arm clean off. But as it stands, it is just lodged in the center of its shoulder, rendering it largely useless. It's a little vague, Owen. Would you like this to trigger your reaction? Because it didn't like burst forth, but it is still above the ground. So if you'd like this to be like the attack, go ahead. Oh, sorry, you're muted again.
I would probably wait until one comes up because it looks like my companion has pretty much handled that one.
And so as this thing is... Oh, sorry.
I'll wait for the next one.
And so maybe this colossal mech hungry zombie, its attention sort of twitches to it, but it decides not to fire as this kaiju is bellowing in pain, this horrific roar that echoes off the walls of the chasm. Connor Locke, you've just seen your comrade shoot through what looks to be several meters of stone with bullets that would be a serious threat if they came your way. What is it you'd like to do?
So that kaiju's now like above ground, right?
Yeah, it's sort of, its waist is, well, it's not so much, it is above ground, but only because the bullets that DJ sent its way sort of blew a mini chasm in this chasm.
Right, yep. So I'd like to do my charging strike to race up and hit it. So okay, roll my dice. Yes, that's a pass. And dice for using that is also a pass.
Nice. Sorry, did you roll damage? You like cut out for a second there.
Just rolling damage now.
Easy.
8.
Right, so this same one, what is it you do to it? What, it's still standing, but how is it that you attack this thing that's just sort of been taken completely by surprise?
So I look over at Kix and I'm like, nice shooting, but nothing beats an axe, and just use my thrusters to just launch myself forward with my axe in front of me and just bury it into it as deep as I can.
And I think maybe you've aimed for the shoulder that's still barely attached, and sort of both driven the huge shell through and lopped the shoulder off with the few bits that still connected. And this kaiju screams in pain, howls as this blue blood, very strange, it looks almost glowing, almost artificial, as it howls and sprays out in front of you. And so it sort of howls and withers and takes a deep breath, and some of this blood splashes on you and starts violently corroding the outer plating of your mech. Take 4 damage if you please.
And
also, sorry.
Through the comms, you'll hear Kix, calling out to Connor and said, "You can tell you've not messed with this kind much. That's why I stayed back here."
Connor just goes, "Oh, it's just just testing you, old man, and just showing you how not to do it. And then I use my chest beam for my attack action. So,
I will interject real quick. I forgot for those first few rolls, but these guys are hit die 4, so please add 1 to all your tests against them.
sounds not a problem. Yeah, that's a pass. So then I roll D8. Yes. Takes another 3 damage.
All right.
And I roll my reactor again. Yep, all good.
And so, as this beam shoots out of your chest, it sort of cauterizes a wound in one place, but pops blood vessels in another, and it's this same strange blue liquid. And as you're looking at it, Kix and Owen, maybe Connor, depending on how much experience you have with kaiju, you know this isn't natural. This is definitely artificial or augmented in some way. Kaiju are known to have acidic blood, but this isn't their blood. It's not the usual sickly yellow-orange that flows through their veins. It's this bright, glowing neon blue.
Awesome.
And that'll be
also, sorry to
another
interrupt.
4 damage for you.
The chest beam pushes a close enemy to near.
You know, yeah, we'll say that counteracts it then. And so as this repulsive force blasts it away, maybe just landing at your feet as some splashes of this acid that starts to eat through the stone. All right. So with that, we'll head back to the top of the initiative out of the surprise round. So, John, what would you like to do? Oh, you're still muted, sorry.
Gotta get used to that.
That's okay.
Okay. I am gonna go ahead and at this point, I don't know how much of the signal sharing that we've been doing, but I'm going to go ahead and do a systems check to have the drone start projecting to all of us so we get a secondary view of the entire terrain.
Cool.
And I'm hoping that this will help as advanced targeting for us all.
So what I'll say, so long as your drone stays up, the kaiju can't benefit from half cover, we'll say.
Okay. And with that, the one that's up, since it's now formally knocked out, can I go ahead and do my readied action from last round?
Yeah, I'll go ahead.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and blast it. And the cannon that is basically a club in an arm just looks forward and just goes. And I am using the knobbing.
Cool.
And that's critical.
Oof. So what's the damage? What damage do you roll for that one?
It's a D12.
D12. Yeah, so there is no way that you cannot kill this thing. Wait, I didn't even have to ask damage. It's only on 2 health. Yeah, there is no way that you cannot kill this thing. So just go buck wild. What is it that your cannon does to this creature?
Wow. It doesn't just blast it. It just kind of explodes as a pop. Because the critical damage on that is a total of 17.
That's quite a bit. And so this cannon, you sort of level it at this creature and fire it off, and it's this immense heat, it's this immense pressure, and in slow motion it'd almost look like a cartoon. It's like one frame it's almost there, one frame it's almost there, next frame the kaiju is just splattered where once stood a beast missing its arm, there is just a spray, and very little of even the acidic blood escapes, as it is vaporized and ripped apart by the immense heat. A small amount falls to the stone and starts to sizzle, but where once stood a kaiju, now there's only smoke.
And at this, probably our veteran will realize that isn't our tech. That's kaiju.
I'm sorry. Dylan just said in chat, instead of a beast missing an arm, it's an arm missing a beast. Yeah. That got me good. Oh, that got me good. Oh.
I didn't want to interrupt the amazing visuals.
But no, yeah, you are totally right. This kind of tech is maybe doable by the Neo Dominion, but definitely not by the Terran Collective. This is kaiju shenanigans, or the Aeonic Primacy, or some strange third party, or fifth party. And so it's the sort of last echoes of the kaiju's screams ring through the sort of conical sort of dome chasm that you're in, and a brief silence is had before two kaiju burst forth from the ground. One, closest to Crimson Apex, closest to Kix, is like its brother, but without the glowing blue blood. But as it bares its teeth and sort of gnashes its claws, you can see they're plated with a ceramic metal composite, sort of a bizarre, sharp, pure white material. And another one, sort of distinct in body shape, bursts out of the ground closest to, let's say, Owen, closest to Hungry Zombie. Both near from both of you. It's this sort of smaller scuttling. You'd compare it to maybe a Komodo dragon in shape, and sort of branching off the back of its head, it has these quills, and one of the quills, or several of the quills, you can see have been distinctly replaced with what look like some sort of antenna. And so what both of them are going to do is just open up their horrific mouths, gnashing with this sort of vile, almost toxic spittle dripping between their teeth. The one closest to Kix opens its maw and releases this beam that looks like a smaller version of what Hungry Zombie just let loose. It's going to make a beam attack against you, Kix.
Some mobility check to
Yep, mobility check.
Fail.
All right, so as this beam impacts you for 12 damage, it strikes dead center. I think perhaps it strikes at the exact spot where you were struck with lightning earlier, and even though it's been patched, it's still slightly weakened, and it's just this horrific crunching like a car in a compactor, just this as this beam sort of sizzles in.
Definitely, if I had not been patched, then that would have been the end of me.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh, and
it's not looking good now. So
we'll have to patch you up again. You've had a rough day. Oh dear. And as this kaiju near Kix lets loose this roar of pure energy, this beam, the one closest to Hungry Zombie lets out a roar of its own, but rather than being of energy, it is this wailing, warbling vibration that seems to resonate with the strange flesh and metal of your mech suit, shaking it back and forth violently. I would like you to make a reactor roll.
Okay. Yep, not a problem.
And so, even though this strange flesh metal composite is vibrating back and forth and shaking, whatever powers this mech is getting a beating, pieces getting knocked out of alignment, everything manages to stay stable long enough for the roar to end, and you escape unscathed. So we're down to the bottom half of the initiative. It's Kix and Connor. Either of you can go in either order. Take your pick.
I'll go if you don't mind.
Yeah, that's all good. I was just about to say you can go.
Okay. This thing just rocks me with this beam, and I sort of it kind of pushes me back a step, and I brace myself, and I engage the buster on my weapon again, to power up my shot for my first action as a use action. Roll my reactor die. That's good. And so I'll have advantage on this attack. Oh, wow. That is a failure.
Oh no. Oh dear.
Yeah. So I guess I wasn't, maybe it rocked me more than I thought it did. And maybe the weapon misfires or jams or something, and I'm not able to get a shot off. But no, I'm not able to get this shot.
Yeah, I think maybe this shot dislodged one of the shells sort of in the automatic feed for your machine gun, and so the automatic recoil compensation fires, but your gun hasn't fired, and so it sort of veers upward and then starts firing these rounds off into empty space. Right, Connor, what's up with you?
Connor seeing like Kix getting like absolutely blasted is just gonna raise his machine gun up and just start wailing on this kaiju in front of him. So that's a pass. And that's a 6. Yeah.
All right, so that's 6 damage, was it?
Yes.
Right. So these bullets just sort of rattle off, and they're like significantly smaller than these colossal rounds that Kix has been shooting off, but their damage is no less potent as sort of bullets riddle. And I imagine maybe you're aiming for the torso and the arm is sort of in front, and you hit the arm, and a few bullets hit the claws and they bounce off completely unscathed. But the kaiju does take quite a beating from these bullets.
Yeah, I'm gonna shoot it again. I'm just gonna
All right.
risk the reactor. That's a pass. And damage. That's 4. And my reactor, do I survive? I do survive.
So that was 4 extra damage as well.
Yes.
And so it's just pressing this assault, sort of this blood dripping, and it is that sort of standard vile-looking orange, yellow blood that seeps from the veins. It's not been augmented like its brother was. It sizzles on the ground, but not nearly as violently. And so we're back up to the top of the initiative with Hungry Zombie.
Okay, how far is Hellmage? I'm sorry.
All good?
Let me. How far am I from Apex?
From Apex, so you are, I would say near, so you could be close with one move action.
Okay. And I am not engaged with the other kaiju, right?
No, it's sort of like it's also near to you, but sort of in the opposite direction. So you could move away without provoking opportunity attack. Everything's been at range
Yeah,
thus far.
that was the major thing I was checking.
Hmm.
I'm gonna interpose zombie in front of Apex. I'm doing it so that his chain gun is still not blocked by me. But in order for the kaiju to directly attack him, it has to go through me.
Right, right.
And with that, I'm also going to go ahead and you're gonna see the tendrils just come down and connect up to your mech. And then we have a question of a rule that Matt's gonna have to decide on.
Go ahead. What's up?
My mech manipulates reactors.
Mm-hmm.
He has downgraded his reactor
Yeah.
voluntarily.
Mhm.
Can my modification up counteract it?
DJ, what was the ability that lets you downgrade your reactor?
So it's my divert power from my Vanguard mech.
Right.
It says as a use action, choose one, downgrade your reactor die and upgrade your damage die, or upgrade your reactor and downgrade your damage die. And it just says you can't exceed a D12 when upgrading or drop beneath a D4 when downgrading. Nothing says
Well,
that.
Well, the only thing that I was mainly asking was because I manipulate. I can basically I can recover reactor points.
Yeah,
Right.
so just looking at the wording and just because it's a little bit cool, I'll totally allow that. I
Okay.
don't think you could upgrade it beyond his maximum, is what I'd say. But you can totally
Right.
put it back.
Okay. So with that, you're going to feel two things go off at once for my two actions. My two actions are going to be first, you're going to connect up, and you're going to receive 8 structure points.
So like straight hit points, or is this? Okay.
Yeah, your HP.
Okay. So I'm back up to full.
And you notice a little bit of damage to the armor that is on Hungry Zombie. And then at that point, now I need to do a reactor roll. I'm good. And then another reactor roll. And you aren't sure exactly what happened, but your mech just went up a reactor die.
Very nice.
And in the claw, the oversized claw is almost in front of him, almost like a shield. You can tell he's bracing to have someone come in at him.
Very nice, very nice. All right. So with that, we proceed to the kaiju. So the kaiju that was roaring at you, Owen, almost like if a kaiju could look insulted, it does. You've just fled to assist your friends, sort of completely ignoring it.
Oh no. I'm the head of the mech is looking dead at it like, bring it on, boy.
And so seeing this, it's egged on a little bit, or it might just be you projecting like human emotion. But it seems like it's egged on, and it starts that that sort of crocodilian run, that weird little leg shimmy, and it lunges towards you with its claws not nearly as sharp as the ceramic tipped kaiju that is giving DJ such trouble, but it still lunges. Go ahead and make me a mobility test to avoid the attack.
Okay. The horrible thing about a laptop is you can never have multiple screens going. I miss it.
Yeah.
Mobility?
Yep.
Oh, that's a 1.
Ooh, so that's a crit success. And so as this thing lunges towards you, I think it's almost like a matador show as it slams into the sort of chasm wall next to you, sort of its snout bashing against the wall, and it takes a small chunk of damage. And the kaiju that unleashed its breath weapon sort of beam at DJ not too long ago, sort of recoils, closes its mouth, sort of. It seemed like it strained itself doing that, and so it's going to charge towards this limb that Hungry Zombie has interposed, and it's going to again flick out its incredibly sharp claws and strike. So that's another mobility test.
That's a 10 under.
Nice. So yeah, that's completely fine. This plated armor portion of your mech that you've interposed, it sort of catches these claws, and there's a definite sort of nails on chalk, sharp scraping sound as they sort of, but no significant damage comes to either of you. All right. So bottom portion of the initiative, it's between Kix and Connor.
Do you want to go first, or?
I can. Either one.
Yeah.
So this thing, both of these have moved into close
Yeah.
of us, right?
Based on the setup, they'd be near to you and Dylan, but both close to Hungry Zombie.
Okay. So then the one that sort of was that had originally attacked me, I'm gonna turn and just fire a normal round out of my chain gun at it. So,
Nice.
that's a success. So that was a 10 on the damage die, so that's 12 damage.
Woo. Right, and so maybe Owen, you're a little bit nervous as you've positioned yourself to allow this chain gun fire through, and within maybe like meters, these huge shells fly past parts of Hungry Zombie, barely scraping through, and just socket themselves into this kaiju's body. It bellows in pain, the noise reverberating once again.
And then for my second action, as a use action, I'm going to deploy my funnel drones.
All right, so what do they do?
So at the end of each of my turns, I can choose to deal 1 damage to each enemy within close or near, or a d8 to one enemy.
All right.
So now it's the end of my turn. So I'm going to roll the d8 on the one I just shot.
All right. And so do you want to describe what those look like, or would you rather?
Yeah, they're these out sort of the pauldron type shoulder area that sort of open up, and these little, they almost can remind you of like a swarm of bees, of these just but mech size bees that come out, and it's sort of a cluster, and they sort of float over, and they're specifically targeting this one, and they all just sort of start spitting lasers out, and it does 7 points of damage to the one I just shot, and then I got to roll my reactor die.
And so I imagine these drones, they're smart. They've got a degree of artificial intelligence to
Mhm.
them to allow them to attack like this. And so they see the open wounds that have been inflicted by your huge rounds and by Connor's machine gun fire. And so they swarm towards, and sort of, if they're bee-like, it's these laser-emitting stingers. And they aim them directly into the wounds and fire these searing lasers, and the beast roars in pain and starts to look sort of panting. It's breathing deeply. It's barely hanging on.
And these drones will last either until I dismiss them or my reactor die downgrades. So
Nice. That's really cool.
yeah.
All right. So Connor Locke, you're up.
Connor seeing that is just like, well, I know what I'm using my money to upgrade on this thing. He's like, okay, let's do like the kiddie version of what you did, and just starts firing his little submachine gun, which is a pass. Just nearly a crit. And 3 damage.
That is the perfect amount to put this beast out of commission. And so I think it's a death by attrition. It's bellowing as this round has been shot into it by DJ, and it's sort of thonked into its stomach. It's screaming and gnashing its teeth as these lasers go into its open wounds, and it's starting to breathe heavily and starting to pant. And it's these final bullets that fling forward, and maybe one catches it in the eye, and it just all of a sudden rings silent and thumps to the ground with a mighty crash.
Okay. And am I near the other one?
You would be... Yeah, you'd be near. You'd be near.
Okay, then I'll use my charging strike to go and hit that then.
Go ahead.
Yes. And then that's 6 damage.
All right.
And my reactor. Ooh, just survive.
And so this thing has had a rough go of it. It has completely missed its lunge. It's bapped its face against the rock and gotten dazed. It's heard the roars of its friend and turned around, only to be just twanged, just chopped by this axe. Its quills on the back of its neck, some of them have snapped off along with one of the antennae, and it's still standing, but it's quickly realizing that it's outnumbered. So back to the top of the initiative, we're back to Hungry Zombie.
Okay, he came in after my claw, which is exactly what I wanted him to do. So I'm going to show him what claws are really meant for. I am going. Is this like an all fours type of creature, or
yeah, so like a
or
large Komodo dragon type.
okay? So I grab it under its neck with my with a claw attack, and my goal is to lift him off the ground. And with that, I'm gonna follow back in with the gnaw beam, and it's gonna be like holding someone while dropping a shotgun in its stomach.
All right. Do you want to just make a regular attack, or do you want to try to do something with that?
Well, with the gnaw attack, with the claw attack, I'm just gonna try to basically hit it, and then would it be either a powers or mobility to lift it off the ground?
I'll say power. We'll go power.
Okay. Okay, first to hit. That is a 4 on the die.
Nice.
So yeah. And it will take claw damage. So it'll take 5 off of that alone
Damn.
and then get lifted up.
And so it's been lifted into the air. You're free to fire.
Would that give it advantage on the attack? Because it's now grappled?
Yeah, I'll say you can like do that because this thing's a little bit smaller.
And wow, the high die was in it. Not even the low die. The high die was in it. If I can keep it on the table. That's another 8 damage coming in off the Navi.
Right. And so that is again more than enough to kill this thing. As this beam, it's sort of soft as far as kaiju skin can be soft. Underbelly is exposed. Do you want to describe how you blast through this thing?
Well, it's less that it blasts. It does blast through. There is no doubt. And you see the beam go off into the distance. But at the same time, as the kaijus have been roaring, my mech roars. A counter roar of "You thought you had this."
All right.
And then it just kind of drops it like an unworthy opponent.
And so it is this scene, it's this fight that has gone so very, very quickly and so very violently, with well placed scanners and brutal equipment. A fight that the kaiju thought that they had easily has been turned quickly on its head, and they all lay dead, except for the one who was summarily blasted into dust. Chasm, for the first time in maybe a minute, 2 minutes, maybe, if that, is quiet. With nothing left. Sorry?
Okay, with that, as it roars, my mech roars. Going into the next turn, I'm going to go ahead and do my nano shroud regeneration
Cool.
to hopefully repair most of the armor.
Cool.
Yeah, I've got 3 of my 4 points back.
Cool. That's great. And so with that, with this final roar and the sizzling of the acid that's left on the ground and the strange metallic clinking of the nanobot shroud that's repairing Hungry Zombie's armor, Chasm falls quiet. And I think I'd suggest this spot to take a quick 5-minute break, grab some water, head to the bathroom if everyone's good with that.
I'm cool with it.
Cool. Reconvene in 5 minutes. All right.
Something we may want to do.
Yeah.
Apex hit points are going to be wrong
Mm.
because unless he rolled, because each additional level you get a hit die.
Mm.
If he's only got 8 hit points, that means he would have had to roll a 2 1s and a 2 for his HP.
It's a good point. I might double check that.
I mean, it's something that unless you've played before, you realize that. Also, the other thing that they need to do is if you gave them 2 levels, they need to roll their stats for the experience.
Mm. I'll double check with DJ when they get back.
I mean, I know you guys haven't played it much, and that's the reason why I'm mentioning it now. Because if you made your modules based on a level 3, and they're running off of level 1 HP with 2 extra modules,
Yeah, that'd be rough.
I'm just saying he's got a hefty mech, and if he's only got 8 HP, it just doesn't sound right.
Yeah, it caught me off guard, but I was wrapped up in the combat. I didn't want to
Oh, I wasn't gonna interrupt it either. I just wanted. It wasn't until I healed him that I realized
yeah.
because that would be 4 D20 rolls to see if he upped his primary ability scores,
Mm.
and 2 dice on the other 2.
Yeah.
I just it a lot of the leveling in this just is so different from any other game.
Yeah,
people-
yeah. No, totally. I'm not sure how much DJ has played before. I've only played once and run 2 games.
Yeah, I just didn't want to see someone lose their character over
Yeah. Yeah, no.
leveling errors.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that'd be a real pain.
I mean, it would have been horrible if we lost a mech and then you find out, oh, you shouldn't have lost your mech.
Yeah. Oh. Man. Beastly work from Hungry Zombie though. Doing
Yeah,
some,
it is crazy what he could do. He doesn't even carry other weapons, which is probably another thing that threw everyone off.
Yeah. Hey DJ. John realized while you were gone, did you roll for extra HP?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah, I rolled terribly for HP.
we thought you were so low that you might not have
No.
rolled, but just rolled.
So you
bad.
rolled 2 1s and a 2
It was close to it. It was not great.
because because at first level you get +4.
Right, and I did that.
Damn. That's
I have 13 hit points total.
oh.
Okay.
Oh, and I slammed you for 12. I rolled
Mhm.
max damage on that Moorbeam. Oh dear.
If I hadn't had all those armor points back, it would have been worse.
Game over.
Mhm.
Out of character, you guys are better off with me in the party taking damage to your hit points than armor,
I
because
think
armor is a lot more expensive for me to repair.
even in character, they probably know that because you tanked those hits and like willingly put yourself in the way. So I think like even in character, they'd be like, "Oh, okay, that's what this guy does."
That is the sort of downside to the Vanguard chassis is even though you start with both of those D8, damage and reactor, you only have a D6 hit die.
Oof.
So
Oh, I know.
yeah.
That's the reason I made my hybrid do the way he does.
Yeah.
All right, so we're all back.
Also, you guys did the level up, right?
Yes.
On your ability scores.
Mhm.
Okay.
Cool. All right, and so we're all back.
It's just that you threw me for a loop when you said that maxed you out, and I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hungry Zombies running was 25 hit points. I rolled good.
Nice. Nice. And so
Oracle's got 22, so it's in that middle.
poor Apex. And so we come back to this chasm, sort of flying overhead, perhaps from the perspective of Owen's sensor drone, and we see flying over what was a few minutes ago completely silent, what was slightly less time ago a violent battlefield, and what is now completely silent again. We see the smouldering pile where Kaiju once stood, and its dismembered arm nearby. We see this brutalized Komodo dragon-esque Kaiju has been picked up and ripped apart by a beam through its stomach. And we see a Kaiju that has simply died from too many wounds, too many small wounds to sustain. This blue acidic blood from the first, these control antennae on the Komodo dragon Kaiju, and the strange ceramic metal composite claws and teeth on the Kaiju that died of attrition. We stand on this strange asteroid, almost large enough to be a small moon, in the center of the Nydus Nebula, with its thick, electrically arcing pink and blue clouds surrounding us. The combat has cleared, and everyone has time to catch their breath. Kicks took things quite rough, almost going down. What is it that you all do?
I say, let's get this job done and try to make that drop point, because I do not want to get stuck here.
I don't want to get stuck here either, but can I take a few minutes? He says, and because I've never seen the composite like that. And as if you can't tell, I might have an interest in it.
So I imagine it's sort of strange, sort of kneeling down towards this kaiju that, like, less than 30 seconds ago was trying to rip you apart and now lies motionless. And you can inspect these teeth and claws, and if you'd like, you can roll a systems test to sort of do an on-the-fly determination of what it is.
Well, Voodoo would do a bit more than even that. I'm going to roll the systems, and I made it by 5.
So you can tell from various scannings and sort of a database of known materials that this is definitely a material that is frequently made and used by the Aeonic Primacy. It's an incredibly tough alloy of exotic metals, ceramics, and platinum. It's incredibly hard, and as a result, can become incredibly sharp with the right processing.
Okay. How much effort do I think it would be to EVA out and dismantle the body parts with it?
So this kaiju is about as tall as your mech. And so if you were to hop out, the teeth and claws would probably be maybe as big as you, maybe half the size of you. And so like dislodging one and sort of decomposing it would take quite a bit. Like it'd be a job.
Okay. Um, then I guess and I take it these claws are oversized.
Yeah, it looks almost like it had claws, and then this sharp alloy composite was sort of plated on top.
Okay. With that, I'm going to go ahead and I look over at our rookie here and say, mind giving me a hand a minute? Or shall I re-say that as get me a hand a minute?
Connor just chuckles. Is like, yeah, sure.
Basically, he wants you to chop off the right claw.
The right click. Yep, I can do that. And starts hacking away with his axe, just not really understanding why he's having to do this.
So while they're dealing with these kaiju, and if would you like relay that information about this being similar to aeonic materials?
Yeah. Yeah, I would tell you this is definitely aeonic tech.
So can I do some sort of scan to see if there's any sort of aeonic presence here, any sort of like
Yeah.
comm center or hub or
So
something nearby?
what you can do is the Aeonic Primacy is known to use a very specific form of communication that actually sort of warps space around it to travel faster than traditional communication means can. And while this technology isn't known, like it's not known to be able to be created by the Terran Collective or the Neo Dominion, it can be detected and decoded. And so I imagine it's fairly common to have like an aeonic transmissions detector that could detect these signals. So if you wanted to roll me a systems test, go ahead.
I completely failed that, like crit failed that one. So that my mech does not have one of those.
Um, yeah, so it's if there is a signal around here, uh, it is either being masked very, very well, or it's using sort of a frequency or similar for this communication method that you can't detect.
Okay.
Um,
I'll say out to everyone, I'm not getting any sort of specific readings or anything, but this doesn't sit right with me. We need to make sure we're keeping our eye out for any more specific Aeon tech. I don't want to get ambushed by anybody.
With that, I'm gonna call back the drone, and it just clicks back into my back, and it with that you hear a few clicks like it's locking into place, and then there is actually a slight hum on the communication. And I'm going to go ahead and use the full sensor systems of the drone along with my own to scan all the frequencies as a quick burst to see if anything's active.
um, sure. I won't even say roll for that. I'll say with the specialized equipment and sort of the knowledge that Kix wasn't getting anything, you send out this sort of larger, more specialized scan, and you get sort of a lot of noise. You think it might be sort of interference from the energetic particles and emissions from the more sort of deadly ring of the Nydus Nebula, but uh, it appears to be just a dead zone, like almost like a communication black zone in here. There's nothing
Okay.
transmitting besides your comlink.
And you said there is a ship that's trapped in the stone around here.
Yeah, so Kix was picking up sort of a seismic outline of what looked like the silhouette of a Terran Collective sort of freight ship.
Okay.
But it was sort of like buried under stone.
I would just suggest that, if everybody's, collected samples that, they find
Yeah.
satisfactory, that we start heading towards down the bottom of this chasm and try to fill up
Yeah.
our vials so that we can get out of here.
Mm-hmm. I'm cool with that.
Yeah, no, I'm all good. Just find some
You
food.
mentioned the ship to everyone, right?
Any uh like transmissions that are like scans that I've been getting, I've just been dropping to your HUDs. So you've been seeing pretty much everything I've been seeing.
Okay. Is there like, can we tell if the ship would be intact?
So it looks to be sort of in several large pieces, but
Oh,
not.
okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Um, so as you're heading down towards the bottom of this chasm with the large sort of underground Eleconium reservoir in your sights, um, you know that it's going to be a long dig, to get down that far. It wouldn't be so long that you would like run out the clock on your like pickup, but it would be cutting it a little fine. Um,
I look at them and said they didn't say how much we need to take back.
uh, and I'll throw it out there. The tunnel, sort of the burrowing tunnel that the kaiju dug, would be big enough to sort of single file fit down, and sort of climb through if you wanted to get sort of a shortcut on the digging.
Um, what do you think, guys?
This could I, like, if I went up to this tunnel and sort of either look down it, or could I see any like major reason why we wouldn't want to utilize this tunnel, or
Besides the possibility of other kaiju, no.
Okay. With that, I will look at the guys, say, if this goes bad, I may need a ride home. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and disconnect the jump jet module again, and I'm going to send it on reconnaissance down into the pit.
All right.
it's going to scan out in front of us?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But you, with that statement, you guys kind of get a realization that if that is damaged beyond repair, you guys are going to have to help get Hungry Zombie back.
Right. And so as this drone is flying down this tunnel, uh, it sees sort of just rough, sort of almost circular tunnel, sort of. It's very clearly been dug naturally. None of this is artificial. It's a kaiju digging. It's fairly standard. And as it's burrowing through, not burrowing through, as it's flying through this burrow, its scanners eventually start picking up what seems to be the large reservoir of Eleconium that you've been looking for, but it's getting further and further down, and it's picking up sort of this, what can't quite be written off as background noise, almost this chittering, this clicking, this clacking, and it eventually comes into this chasm, this huge, almost like a natural gas pocket, sort of a dome or a sphere filled with Eleconium in the bottom half. And almost no sooner is it in this chasm as it is swiped and crushed and crunched. before the signal dies.
I would say the tunnel is not a good option. And it looks like I need to get a new pack.
Well, that seems to be the case. Then I say we spend the rest of our time making sure that we can make it to the drop point,
Mm-hmm.
get back through this nebula, and I know that's going to be tough with us having to help
I
you along.
I think I'm going to be able to maneuver off of the maneuvering jets that are normally equipped in a mech. It's more that I'm going to need you guys to help me get up to speed and to slow down. Because once I'm going, it will take forever for these maneuvering jets to slow me down to an appropriate landing speed. But at least it was a part of a mech rather than a mech that we lost.
Sounds like a plan to me. I say we get out of here.
All right. So, are you guys just straight leaving, or are you going to commence the dig?
They didn't tell us how much they wanted, and they basically told us to never speak of it again. So I say we meet them at the drop point, give them what we got, and cash out. They didn't say per vial. They just said, "Here's the amount of money we're going to pay you." So
That's true. That's true. And so, uh, as you've arrived, yeah, you leave as you've arrived, sort of gently. You're now assisting Hungry Zombie in cases where he needs a little bit of oomph, but generally you manage to get to the top of the chasm and can leave at your leisure.
Once we get going, just to make it a little easier for them to catch me, I'm probably going to ask if I can umbilical with the tentacles, just to make it easier for you guys to kind of manipulate me.
Oh yeah. No, that works. Yeah. So I'll say yeah, you're fine. You can be assisted like quite easily. Yeah. Yeah. You're all is good. I don't have to think of some sort of mechanic there. You're all set. Um and so it's relatively smooth sailing until about halfway back to the edge of the nebula. The asteroid sort of semi-moon that you're on, you see it start to shake, maybe quake. And you notice a large crack start to spread over maybe half the surface of this thing. And in an event that looks like it should carry some sort of noise, but of course it can't, because we're in the vacuum of space, a tremendous beast that seems to have assimilated part of several parts of several Terran Collective freighter ships bursts forth, looking like a colossal version of the beasts you fought minutes ago. It seems to be covered in 7 of these small pulsating stations where smaller kaiju seem to be resting and absorbing energy. And it shakes the rock off its back, lets out a tremendous roar that makes no sound this far away, and turns its head towards you, its eyes glowing that same sort of aqua vibrant blue. So, what I'm going to do here is you guys have already decided to leave. You can decide to stand and fight. You can decide to leave. You can do what you will. But this thing is going to be chasing you. And so what we'll do is I think we'll roll initiative and proceed from there.
I'm in the upper.
Cool.
I'm above as well.
And that makes 3.
All right.
Okay.
So to sort of quantify things, it is about 5 or 4, we'll say 5 move actions away from you. And the edge of the Nydus Nebula is 3 move actions away from you.
Cool, I'm just going to keep going then.
By the way, your reactor didn't go back down.
Hmm.
So even if you adjust your stuff, that was a permanent change. Until your reactor is reduced again, it stays.
Cool.
Okay.
All right. So this tremendous beast bursting forth from this asteroid, what is it that you'll do?
I think Zombie would kind of take the lead on this, and at that point, both of you, he's going to do his double action, and you're going to both get a reactor die up. It's going to be all I can do for our rookie here, but at least this way, it's giving you more power to push into your whatever ionic engines or power use that we use. So I'm going to go ahead and start rolling my reactor dice. So I am good.
Cool. And so both Connor and Kix go up 1 step in their reactor die.
So that's 2 now on Kick.
Cool.
I can only do 1 on you. Just because your mech isn't designed to go above reactor very easily.
And so I presume with your move action you'll be heading towards the edge of the Nydus Nebula, or would you prefer to stand and fight?
I'm being dragged along with them, so I'm assuming if they haul ass, we're going, and if not, I can't do much to make them go.
Fair.
Well, I'm going to, as I'm, trying to figure out exactly what I need to do, I notice the upgrades that they added to our mechs before we were dropped out, and I noticed that it has sort of like an advanced thrusters and everything, and so I'm going to utilize my Eleconium swiftness for my move action. I'm going to test system, and I failed. So that doesn't do anything this turn. Do I still need to roll my reactor even if I failed? On that?
Yeah. So the modules are always risky like that.
Okay. So at disadvantage, and I passed that.
Cool.
So then I guess I'll just take a normal move action then.
Yeah.
And then I'll roll my reactor die for that, and I'm good on it. So
cool. And so I imagine it's perhaps a bit of damage to this experimental module from earlier when you were struck by the lightning has sort of jammed it up temporarily. But your normal thrusters work as you expect them to. And you sort of start pushing towards the edge of the Nydus Nebula. Connor.
I'm going to use my static cloud to try and turn just invisible.
Cool.
That's a success. So, and my reactor die, which has now gone up, has gone down. Gone down 1 reactor.
Which really won't matter, hopefully.
Hopefully not. And then after that, I'll just use my move action just to move forward.
Cool, cool. And so as this sort of static smoke starts to appear and your mech just sort of vanishes from plain sight, always sort of dodging everyone's eye, this charged smoke just sort of starts accelerating towards the massively charged edge of the nebula. Um, and you are left invisible and hurtling towards the edge. And so looking behind you, you can see the rocks starting to fall off the shoulders and the skin and the torso of this colossal kaiju. And its eyes sort of glow a deep blue, but seem to lock onto the two mechs that are visible. And its eyes sort of flicker a deep red. And you can see now that the rocks have fallen, the surface of this asteroid is no longer clinging to its body. You can see that it is sort of marred with this same composite metal, but on a much larger scale. Parts of its body seem to have been replaced with ionic primacy technology. And it starts charging towards you, propelling itself with expulsions of energy from these nodes that the small kaiju are feeding from. And so it's going to move 3 times, and so it's only now. So you guys got 6 moves away from it, so it's now 3 moves away from you guys. Cool. Back to the top of the initiative.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go just to augment everyone else. I'm going to first. Is this umbilical able to tell what's going on in their systems? Because I'm even connected into their reactors.
I roll a systems test, and we'll see.
Made it by 7.
So yeah, I'd say you're used to this strange kind of patchwork technology. You can dismantle the strange mix of signals that are coming through the cable that connects you to them. So yeah, you can know what's up with their reactors and their sensors and so on.
Okay, with that, I'm going to use the nanobots in a slightly different way from the nano shroud.
Right.
And I want it to reinforce and repair any small cracks or anything that I think is messing with Apex's increased movement module.
Cool. So go ahead and say, you've already made the systems test. You know what's going on with his reactor and his sensors. I'll say, DJ, you have advantage on the next systems test for that module.
And then I will go ahead and roll my power because I'm actually a reactor down because of the module. Losing that one module myself.
Easy.
So I am fine on that one. And now on Connor's mech, I'm going to go ahead and try to restore your reactor die so you're still at max power. So it goes up by 1 and mine goes down by 1, but that's fine.
Cool.
You're pulling me, and that's all that matters right now. Although I will warn you, you do not want to see my mech if I do end up having a reactor failure, because it's not the same as yours.
All right. So DJ or Dylan, who's up next?
I'm gonna try to use this module again now that I have advantage on this roll.
Go right ahead.
So glad I had advantage on that roll. The other one was a 20 again.
Oh dear.
So I successfully tested system. So I'm going to gain advantage on my next mobility or power test.
Mhm.
And then I get to move twice right now.
Cool.
So I should be at the edge of the nebula.
Yep. And so a combination of these thrusters and this strange sort of Eleconium tendril around your legs that seems to be shooting forward and dragging you forward with extreme speed that's only amplified by the charged nature of the nebula that you're hurtling towards. You get right to the edge in almost the blink of an eye. And it sort of drags Oracle and Hungry Zombie, and you hear this sort of groan in the cable as the tension ratchets up, as it's being pulled and being stretched, and you hear this sort of, but it holds on, and so you're all right near the edge of the nebula.
And then I have a second action. Trying to see what I want to do. I might just double up on that move and try to take the plunge into the nebula.
All right.
I'll just have to roll my reactor die. I'm good.
Cool. So yeah, plunging into the nebula, you see that sort of same pink and blue fog and cloud that you saw before, and your senses are starting to pick up with that sort of crackling, that beeping, whatever noise they emit. Yeah, you've plunged back in. Right, Dylan.
Are we all through the nebula, or just DJ?
So I'd say you guys are still on the edge, connected by the cable, and DJ has plunged in.
Oh, then I'll plunge in as well. I'll just take that move.
All right.
Just trying to think if there's anything else I can do. I don't think there is. I'll ready an action that if anyone comes into close range, then I'll use my tendrils to attack.
Cool. And so this colossal kaiju, this leviathan of a beast, is still charging towards you, emitting this energy to propel itself. And as it gets near to you, it knows it can't move much further. It can't quite catch up to you just yet. And so the sort of energy source on each of its shoulders grows dim. And two kaiju beasts, similar to the ones you fought before, sort of awaken, one from each shoulder, and start charging towards you, sort of propelling themselves with an energy method similar to their apparent caregiver. And so, as the first one approaches, so they have. As the first one approaches you, sort of near the back of the pack, Oracle Zero, you can go ahead and use your tendril attack if you like.
Perfect. So that's a system check. Where's my dice? There it is. And that is a crit success, which is nice.
Whew.
Nothing like good timing.
So because that's an attack, that will do the same rules for crit damage. So just double the damage rolled for that one.
Cool. So that's 4, so that would be 8, and then my tendrils do twice the damage of your die.
Yeah, so if you roll 2 of your damage die and double that.
Yeah, perfect. So that will be 10 doubled to 20.
Oh, so 24 damage total?
Yes.
Damn. So you
I
reach out your arm and activate this module, and the sort of battery packs on your back sort of discharge, and these tendrils, as compared to everything else, the roiling clouds and storms around you, the charging huge leviathan, the small kaiju, these tendrils seem oddly slow, but with tremendous force, they grapple one of the kaiju and seep in between its skin, seep down its throat, and simply constrict it, crumple it like a paper cup, and it dies instantly. You rolled tremendously well on that damage.
Gotta try and keep this.
And so the other kaiju that's been awakened sees its brother crumple without even a cry because the Eleconium has choked its throat. And so it roars in rage and unleashes a claw attack against you, Dylan. So if you could make a mobility
Yes.
test to avoid.
I can certainly do that. And just pass.
Just pass. So I think it's sort of the shock. It lunges forward, but it's only just awakened. It's not readjusted to a zero gravity environment, and it's shocked at how quickly its sibling was crumpled, and so it just sort of floats past you. And we're back to the top of the initiative. As we're moving through the Nydus Nebula is 3 move actions wide. On each of your turns, you'll no longer need to make the system test because you've got the place mapped pretty well, but you'll still be open to mobility or power tests to avoid the swinging boulders and asteroids in the center.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. I'll go first. I'm just going to make just 2 moves. Keep going.
Mhm.
So I'll roll my reactor. And I pass. Yeah.
All right. So after the first move away from the kaiju, it tries to swipe at you again. So if you could make a mobility test just to see if you take any damage from the opportunity attack.
Yes. No, I passed that one as well.
And still just sort of floating by, it sort of swipes feebly at you as you rocket away with the thrusters provided. And as you enter the Nydus Nebula, I'll need a mobility or power test to avoid those asteroids.
Cool. I'll do mobility, and I crit success on that one.
Ooh. So I'll say you've dodged it perfectly well and will not have to dodge on your next test. You've mapped the place so well that you've charted a route that is both low energy and free of asteroids.
Perfect.
All right.
Okay. We're going to go ahead and have Hungry Zombie go. And it is not happy on this situation. Its friend's gone. So let's go ahead and deal with the one that's left. I'm going to go ahead and you see the tendrils kind of pivot me so that now I am I'm facing backwards compared to everyone else. And since you guys are towing me anyway, you see the cannon just swing around and the entire arm is just there. I'm going to go ahead and use the gnaw beam.
Cool.
That is a hit.
Cool.
And that's a pretty number. Go ahead and take max damage 12.
Ooh. And so it's this huge blast of energy, perhaps amplified a little bit by the surging powers of the Nydus Nebula around it. It's this crackling, blistering heat that surges forward and starts to melt the metal plating that has been sort of implanted on this small kaiju. As it blasts its entire right side, its skin has started to drip and its metal has started to singe.
And it's still there?
Yeah, it's still there. They're tough little buggers.
I know. I expected it. I just wanted to make sure. And I need to do a reactor roll for the first one. And I'm good. Let's go ahead and do another shot. And that is another hit for another 8.
All right. And so, where this thing is sort of reeling and spinning, in fact, from the energy that was just imparted into it on its right side, so it's sort of rotating through space, it gets hit in the back and starts tumbling over its own head, sort of shaking and trembling, still sort of thrashing, but barely. Yeah.
And ooh, you guys are not going to be happy. Hold on a second. I've got to look at something.
All good.
Uh, and okay. How far away is the mech that I just wounded?
Oh, the sort of kaiju that you just wounded, they would be near, so one move action away.
So, and my companions are 2 away, right?
Yeah.
Because they're dragging me.
Yep.
Okay, that is very convenient. You hear a roar, and it doesn't completely let go, but multiple tendrils have been attaching to you. All of a sudden, about a third of them on both of your mechs stop and shoot back at the kaiju that is there. And I need to roll. And it is going to take another 4 damage from the tendrils attacking it.
You guys have been getting the perfect numbers to kill all session. Yeah, that is just enough to wipe the second one off.
And it grabs it. It starts to pull the husk of it towards me.
And so I imagine.
But also at the same time, my comms went out.
Oh, that's concerning.
Well, they may be back in a minute, but basically the hybrid took over.
Right.
My reactor failed.
Oh dear. And so if either of you look back, it's sort of a parallel where the Eleconium tendrils sort of reached in to the other kaiju and crumpled it. These tendrils have wrapped around and crunched it inward. So I think it's DJ and then the kaiju.
So I'm going to. So I'm roughly about 3 moves away from the edge of this nebula. So I'm going to attempt to use my experimental swiftness again.
Mhm.
So I didn't use that one. That one didn't quite work. So my reactor's fine.
Cool.
But I'm still gonna just power on through and take a normal move action. Reactor die is fine.
Cool.
Do I need to make any mobility or anything?
Yeah, so as you're charging back through the nebula, a mobility or a power test to avoid one of the spinning asteroids.
I passed that one as just a mobility. I'm just kind of dodging and getting through.
You've learnt not to go through the middle of them. Yeah, and so it's a little bit obscured, so it takes a moment for the large kaiju to realize that its children have just been crushed so easily. But as it's charging forward, it realizes and it reaches out an arm that is big enough to swipe at all of you, even through this nebula. So if everyone could make me a mobility test to try to avoid this sweeping claw.
Do we need to add anything to this? Or
That's I consider this like an environmental condition, not an actual enemy.
Okay.
So no, I'll say just flat.
okay, I still failed.
I passed on that one.
Did you pass, John?
I made it by 2. I don't know how high that check is.
Sorry, I can't quite hear you.
I made it by 2, but
Oh.
I'm not sure the modifier on that check.
We'll just go flat for the modifier.
Okay.
So, anyone who failed, so I think did Dylan, did you? No, okay, so
No, I
Jason.
passed.
So DJ, that's gonna be like I've been picking on you all night. Oh dear. That's gonna be 4 damage. Sort of a glancing blow that sends you spinning, much like the kaiju was before from Hungry Zombies cannon. As one claw sort of scrapes the side of you. Right. And that's that. Back to the top of the initiative. You guys getting very close to getting out of there.
So I would have just like the 1 movement left to get out.
Yep.
Cool. I'll do my movement, but I'll also do my static cloud as well. So
Cool.
that's my ability. I pass that, and then my reactor. I pass that as well. So I hidden again, if that's you're deem that to be possible.
I'd say because of the thick clouds, in addition to the fact that it's like a cloaking technology, I'd allow that.
Perfect. Thank you. And then I'm doing my last movement to get out.
Cool. And so you've avoided these asteroids, masterfully plotted the perfect course through the storm, and you are rewarded with something that feels like you charge through and you sort of imagine fresh air upon your face, even though there's no material change. It's such a relief to finally be out and at least no longer enclosed in the home of the beast. So who's up next? John or DJ?
I'll go ahead and go next.
Nice.
And oof. With that, since the call is at close, you're gonna think he's a complete idiot for this, but it's firing the null beam at the claw.
Go right ahead.
I kind of don't have a choice here, just so the players know.
Go ahead. Give us what you got.
It's gonna take 6.
All right, and so this beam fires, and sort of, I imagine Hungry Zombie is sort of raging and a little uncontrollable at the moment. That's the vibe I've been getting. Would you say?
Yeah, my reactor's down, so I don't go down. It goes wild.
Yeah. And so it's roaring and unleashing this huge, powerful blast of energy, and it slices through and sort of severs one of the sort of nodules that these small kaiju have been gathering energy from on the shoulder of the beast.
And with that, you're gonna hear the lightest sound of a communication band. And it's telling you, and it's Owen, and he's saying, don't get near zombie. Do not get near zombie.
Cool.
And as that sort
and,
of
and you're realizing that is not the comm in the it's the comm in his suit. It is not the comm in the mech.
as this, that kind of communication sort of crackles through the speakers, I um, take note of it, and you can probably tell something's going on back there. And so I'm just going to press through, and I'm just going to take 2 move actions to get out, because I'm only 2 move actions away.
All right.
Here's reactor dive for that. I'm good on that. Do I need to do any sort of mobility or anything? Or
Yeah, so mobility or power to avoid one final asteroid that's swinging towards you.
okay, and I crit that one. So
Oh, nice. Sorry, just got a call. I'll answer that later. Yeah, so you deftly dodge. You learnt from your mistakes the first time round. You've no longer been impacted. You haven't been impacted again, rather. And you've managed to avoid the high energy zones. No more lightning streaking towards you. And much like Connor, you see this just expanse open up before you. The stars twinkling in the void as you get past the last wisps of the bright pink clouds of the Nydus Nebula.
so is would would zombie still be in the nebula, like farther
Yeah.
back from us?
So what I think we've sort of unspokenly come to is that the tendrils attach him and drag him, but he's like 2 movements away at most. So he's still like 2 movements in the nebula. So you guys would need to move further away or pull him or something similar. Yeah. All right. And so the other 2 have sort of disappeared from the range of this tremendous Leviathan, but Hungry Zombie is still roaring and making a ruckus. And to this Leviathan, perhaps it seems like a child throwing a tantrum given the size difference, and it means to assert that it owns the Nydus Nebula. And so it's going to strike at you twice. So that's going to be
Okay.
2 mobility tests to try to avoid its claws.
One is success, one is a crit failure.
Oh, so that's going to be double damage on that second one. So let's roll that. Ah, that's going to be 20 damage on that one as this claw, this arm just strikes towards you, the center of its palm just crushing you and sending you flying downward.
You feel the jolt, a pull on your mechs as zombie gets hit, and it actually yanks you. You feel it, and zombie takes the hit and is taking it all on structure. It's all going into his HP pool.
And so I imagine you guys, you aren't like dragged back into the Nydus Nebula, but you're sort of dragged downward as much as there is a downward in space. You know, you're pulled down in the direction of your mech's legs as this huge impact sends you hurtling. But it's back to the top of the initiative.
I'm gonna go ahead and do it because the mech is going nuts. And I still don't have control.
Oh dear.
And it is going to be pissed. So yeah, it's gonna go ahead and do the mole beam. And that is a crit.
Ooh. So roll damage, double it.
Well, hopefully this will piss it off even more. 20.
Take 20, give 20 back. So yeah, this beam of crackling energy surges through the Nydus Nebula. I imagine it perhaps even cuts a smaller asteroid clean in half and slams into the body of the larger kaiju, popping several of the nodules that are feeding the small kaiju, and perhaps even cleaving some of them in twain. And the beast sort of it doesn't produce any sound because there's nothing to carry the sound. But you see it thrashing its arms, leaving trails through the thick smoke clouds, the Nydus Nebula. It is enraged.
And with that, my second action, I am going to dump all of my armor in the attempt to use the engineer ability of voodoo, thinking, oh my god, what in the hell am I gonna do? With that, it is going to take my 7 points of armor and turn it into 14 points of structure.
Cool. Easy.
And on that radio channel, you keep hearing every curse word you could ever hear, and it's flipping between French, a little bit of Spanish, and English, all going off at once because he's Creole.
All right. So you're almost in the clear. DJ and Dylan, what is it you'll do?
Can I do like a systems check just to like see if I can reach out to the ship that's picking us up?
Yeah, since you're
Hurry
clear
up.
of the nebula, you'd be able to send a signal outward. So go ahead.
You? Yes, that's a success.
So yeah, you've established comms. What would your like opening message be?
Lost contact with Owen. He's still in Nebula, tethered to us. We need pickup now. Big kaiju.
And so it takes maybe a few seconds, and you get a response back. On our way.
Cool. And then I'll try and I'll probably move forward just to try and pull like zombie a little bit closer to coming out of the nebula.
Makes sense.
Yeah, that's what I'll do.
Yeah, so he gets dragged. He's now one move action. He's on the very edge of the nebula. Yeah. And you presume the dropship is on its way.
And for my actions, I'm just gonna move and sort of maybe pull him along and to just try to get him all the way out of the nebula to at least get him away from the big kaiju.
As you manage to pull me out of the nebula, you see that you thought you were mangled. There's like an entire leg missing.
That's rough.
And the arm that's the claw has gouges in it. You're thinking that arm probably isn't even usable right
All right. And so, Kix, as you're dragging a zombie out, and with the combined effort of Oracle Zero as well, you manage to get him out, but keep him at a safe distance as he appears to be incredibly damaged, but writhing and furious. And
now. And at that they do notice one thing. You're seeing orange. I believe that's kaiju blood, right?
Yeah, sort
Orange.
of a metallic orange.
Orange coming out of the mech.
And so, as this metallic blood drips and drops, and perhaps some of it gets left behind in empty space, this kaiju sort of claws its way forward and sort of pokes its upper torso out of the nebula and glares at you with those same red eyes, always looking. But as you get further and further from the edge of the nebula, it looks like it's giving up the chase. As you fly away, it ceases chasing, and before long, the dropship is there to collect.
After you guys pull me out, you finally hear over the regular mech radio. Thanks, guys. If you want an explanation, I'm willing to, but I'd appreciate it if you'd keep it to yourself. If you want it.
Connor's just like, I don't think I'd understand even if you explained it. I'm just gonna say it was hocus pocus magic. That's my explanation.
Voodoo working his voodoo.
Pretty much.
And so, the same ship that dropped you off opens its airlock and ushers you in. The artificial gravity comes over you again, and you feel that same strange, almost nausea that comes from being put under regular gravity after being in 0G or close to for so long. Your legs feel heavy. Your neck maybe lops to one side before you remember to support it. And you hear the steady flow of air coming back into the chamber as the huge steel door is shut and locked airtight. Captain Undra... Oh, sorry.
As soon as we're in, I'm going to switch over to the band for maintenance and repair and recovery. And they get a message, do not approach zombie. I'll get out on my own. I'm battered, but good enough. There's some things that I have to deal with, and I don't want to risk anyone else.
And
click.
You probably, none of you can see it, but the engineering team is probably like, oh well, time to go down and fix it all. And they get this message, and the two the technician and engineering pair that didn't work on your mech before, they're noticing everyone being like, well, that's a weird message, and they're just like, no, yeah, listen to him. And so Captain Undra comes into the room, tailed by pairs of engineers who are set to work, setting up stations for intensive repairs. And she beckons you out of your mech suits.
I tell her, can we do this in 5 minutes?
And
my mech repair is time sensitive, as in dangerously time sensitive.
She looks at you and almost gets a snarl, but takes a deep breath and says, very well. And so she simply waits, standing completely stock still, completely straight, almost like a statue performer.
And with this, any tech that's near zombie notices that Voodoo is not getting the standard tech gear. This is bio gear. It looks something more like from a cybernetics lab. And most of the flight deck crew have no clue what in the hell is going on.
And so
His main concern right now is first zombie dying, literally dying.
And so, if you talk to the technicians, they're willing to help, but they don't quite know what they can do.
Basically, it's just like treating an animal's wounds. He's going in and making sure that the blood loss won't continue, things like that.
Mm.
And at that point, you realize there's a vat built inside of Hungry Zombie that is not in anything that a normal mech should ever see.
And so, I imagine the engineering team offers what little support they have. Maybe they have quite a large vice that they use to sort of suture one of the big wounds, put immense pressure to stop the blood flow. And the
Well,
wound.
his other concern was the blood of kaiju are acidic.
Mm.
He was scared that it was going to burn through the hull.
So it does sizzle and crackle, but luckily the metal is thick enough for it to sort of neutralize before it causes any severe damage.
Okay.
Yeah.
And with that, after the 5 minutes, I'll go ahead and take care of that and go to meet her.
So after the 5 minutes are done, do you join Connor and Kix?
Oh yeah.
Sorry, no, I meant do Connor and Kix join you? Sorry.
Yeah, no, I crawled out, got out of my mech pretty much as soon as she's like, "Come here now, we need to talk." Connor was like, "Yeah, okay."
So she looks to each of you and she simply says, "Did you recover any Eleconium?"
There wasn't much to recover, but we got some.
We got all we could before the thing came after us.
Then your work is done. And she reaches into a sort of a satchel that she has on her back, sort of like one of those old newspaper satchel, you know, the big leather things that go over the back. She brings it round to the front, she reaches in, and she hands you digital credit sticks. A little bit of a huge pain in the ass, because these are only accepted and converted into physical credits on high-tech worlds, and the nearest one is a few days away. So unless you're planning to stay there, you'll need to swing by and transfer it into physical credits. But she hands each of you a digital stick worth 50,000 credits, as promised. Tell me, did you discover what happened to our ships?
They got 8.
Sorry?
All he says is they got 8.
Oh, they got a. Sorry, I completely misunderstood. By the large kaiju you mentioned, I presume.
We didn't see
It-
specifics, but yeah.
With
Yes.
that, on my portable tech gear, I pull up a picture of the one finger mark on my claw.
Well,
Because the one finger is bigger than the claw.
she looks to it, takes a moment to realize and take it in, and strangely for someone as stern as her, she looks like taken aback for a brief moment. And she firms back up and she says, "Well, no one said mining Eleconium would be safe."
Never expected it.
Well, something that you might be interested in if you weren't aware is that this is no normal kaiju.
Oh, what do you mean?
These things had Aeon tech grafted into their skin, infused into their blood.
And upon hearing this, her stern demeanor shatters. It stays for maybe half a second, and she just looks shocked. And her normally blunt, efficient manner of speech gives way to a simple, "Oh, no."
Connor then
This-
interrupts. He goes, "Yeah, the most shocking part was they had blue blood. Like,
This does not bode well for any in the star system.
yeah, blue's my least favorite color as well.
Right.
Just has no idea what's going on at all. He's just trying to help and he's just wanting to be part of this, but no idea."
And so, with that, if we're all happy to, I think that's a good spot to leave. All right.
Yeah,
With one epitaph.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. After this meeting, you see that I go back down, start working on zombie, and the first thing I do is take the other claw and basically gut it out to get the armor. And that is what's going to be zombie's new armor claw.
Nice.
nice.
All right. With that, it's time to end the stream, methinks. If any of you guys have any personal projects or plugs you'd like to give, go right ahead. Otherwise, just introduce yourselves and say goodbye to the chat.
Well, goodbye, everyone. It's been nice seeing you. Signing off as Connor Locke, Dylan Pether.
This has been a lot of fun. Don't really have any major projects going on. My channel's pretty dormant for the most part. Been wanting to get running some games, but we'll see how that goes, especially closer to the new year. But yeah, DJ Hester.
I am John, and it's been a blast. Been playing Owen, Voodoo, Kadar, and me and Hungry Zombie are signing off.
Nice. All right. Me personally, I'm Matt. You might know me from AbTab. I post occasionally. I'm looking to run a load more games coming this summer, probably 6 or 7 before the end of next February, if all goes well. So hopefully you'll see some more of me, and some more of these guys if we can get them into some more games, which hopefully we can. Thanks for hanging out. This has been a game of Mecha Hack. If you enjoyed what you saw, or you think you could run a game that you'd enjoy, I highly recommend checking it out. The link to Absolute Tabletop's website is in the description. And that'll be us. Goodbye, everyone.